Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. As always, in the CNC, I have Karen.
Hello.
And Lou.
Hello.
And we are here to discuss Season 3, Episodes 16 and 17. That's right, it's a two-parter done in one part, because that's how we roll. World Without End, Part 1, Part 2, originally aired May 13th, 1996, and May 20th, 1996. This is a good one where all our commanders come home to roost, so to speak. Lou, quick thoughts.
The floodgates have opened. It's been feast or famine with this show, and this is quite the feast of reveals and moving the story forward. I really liked it. I thought there was a lot of big moments. There was some nice quiet character moments as well, and overall I really don't have too many complaints except for what they did with Garibaldi in these two-parters. Really bums me out, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. But personally, I would have liked to seen him more involved in these episodes.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's a fair feedback, right? I won't say nitpick, but yeah,
valid
feedback. Absolutely. Yeah, valid concern. Karen, how about you?
Yeah, these were great. Some of my favorite things were in this. We got some more character development, which is cool. We got some threads being pulled, like we could see where they were finally. And then seeds were planted. So I think these really hit on all cylinders for me.
And one of the things we're going to get to is last week we recorded, to pull back the curtain, we recorded just 12 Monkeys because we were planning to have Charles join us. And then because of circumstances that are very understandable, he wasn't able to join us. So we're resetting our normal Sunday morning. But last week, before we talked to 12 Monkeys, Lou had said he thought the show might have actually revealed a little too much. I'm going to put that as a lantern to close with. All right. That'll be our closing thoughts before we get to feedback and ratings and such. But I remember loving this episode when I first saw it. Every time I go back and see it, I enjoy it. I forget a lot of the twists and the turns. It is very timey-wimey. For people who are really very detail-oriented, if you watch the three in a row, Babylon Squared, and that there are things that they did not get quite perfect. But overall, to me, as a semi-casual viewer or a fan, I think they really tied up everything neatly, considering this was not filmed at the same time.
Jesse, let me ask you, because you brought that up, and I didn't rewatch Babylon Squared, and I should have, but in these two episodes, were all the previous scenes that we had seen, were they refilmed for this episode, or did they cut from the previous episode and insert them?
Both. Some of them they redid. Some of them they used a lot of Garibaldi stuff they just put in. The rumor is, according to feedback we got, is that Michael O'Hare and, oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank on Jerry Dole did not get along. And that was one of the reasons why they did not have them next to each other. I don't know. That's just a rumor.
Oh, okay. I was wondering because it was an odd story choice, at least to me, but
yeah. I don't know if that is true, but that is what someone said in the feedback. And the people who's giving that feedback, when Karen reads it, it's someone that usually knows. I sent a couple of notes. And so because this episode does not really have an A or a B storyline, it just is a story. I'm going to do the best I can. You guys go anywhere you want, but we're going to open up
talk about it like it's a movie, like it's one big piece.
Yeah.
So we get to see Minbar and we return of Sinclair. So let's talk about that. Karen, when you saw Did you know that Michael O'Hare was coming back? And were you happy to see Ambassador Sinclair? That's okay.
Yeah, I knew he was going to come back at some point, but I wasn't sure it was these episodes. And it was, I as soon as they showed Minbar, they said Minbar on the screen, right? And then they showed this futuristic planet. I thought to myself, okay, this is probably going to be about like the Rangers and stuff because they're all based there on Minbar. And it turned out to not be the Rangers, quote unquote, but Sinclair. And I kept thinking during these 2 episodes that we had dinged on his acting in the first season. And I think the way he acts is well suited to this kind of Yoda-like character that doesn't really say anything when he says something. And I thought his style of acting worked very well with this character. And I just kept thinking that, hi, maybe we didn't give him enough credit because he was pretty good in these 2 episodes. And it was the same type of acting. It was just a different character, essentially. And I thought it was pretty cool that it's super cool at the end of these 2 episodes. But even in the beginning, when he's getting the message and all that, and it was from 900 years ago, I assumed it was from someone connected to this time travel-y thing. The way they revealed stuff slowly through these 2 episodes was very cool. And just seeing Minbar, that was awesome. It made me think of like when they showed Starfleet Academy and in TNG, and it looked futuristic. I thought it was pretty cool. And this is an older civilization, so it's had more time to advance. And I'm just telling you the things that I thought when I watched it.
Sure.
And one of them was, we're not going to have anything that looks like that. All our buildings are going to be these concrete and steel things, even, 500 years from now. We're not going to have crystal buildings.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool looking. They must have a lot of crystal around and glass.
Yeah, it did I think too often we try to make aliens look like us, or if a lot of that's for practical special effects, but also it felt alien. It felt that this whole thought, and we get more into the Trinity of Minbar as we get into this episode.
Right. Their whole setup.
Everything is in 3s.
And everything looked really organic too, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. Lou, how about you?
Yeah, the Minbar scenes felt very 90s, like from a technical perspective, and the vibe I got from the city was like a mix of a futuristic city merged with Rivendell or something like that. Like it felt like that. And unfortunately, one of the tropes that all shows, movies, whatever's face nowadays is because of the Star Wars movies, the Jedi attire with the cloak and the hood kind of deal is pervasive through all media. So every time that now, like even in Star Trek the Motion Picture, Spock had the cowl up before he did the reveal kind of thing. So it's a trope now, and you knew right off the bat who that one cloaked character was. I wish they would have shown a couple of other people in the crowd wearing cloaks or something, or same, just to say, oh, okay, so this is not totally unique or unusual in the society. There's a lot of these people wearing cloaks or whatever. I think that would have helped that scene a little bit, but it was a good reveal. And one of the things that I always chuckle at, for me, and we've seen this in 12 Monkeys too, is the handwriting of printing of these people or whoever does this stuff. It's so perfect. Like this one had a particular kind of lower hanging kind of scrawl to it. So all the letters were almost like dripping off the page kind of style of writing. So I thought that was interesting, but it's just so bloody perfect. I have never seen anybody's printing that looks that good in real life. So that's just a funny aside that I got from seeing those scenes. But
so
yeah,
let me interrupt you just because I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
My good friend Tom, who you met at Dragon Con years ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he first work in comic books was a letterer.
Okay.
And because of that, when he prints, it is just perfect.
Right.
And like I watch him and he can print just as quick as other people would do cursive. And it is just it looks like a computer. It just so there are very few people who can do that. And I do think that is a great thing to look at, right? It's almost Olivia. But yes, I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So every time I see it, I go, this character would not have this good handwriting. Somebody in the art department did this, like you said, a letterer or something like that. So that's just one of those funny things that just noticed. And Karen's point about his acting in this episode is well taken, I think. And it may be to do with the storyline itself, the path that he's on, that it's because he's gotten that letter from himself that he knows where he's going, so that gives him more clarity as to what he has to play in these 2 episodes, I think. Whereas all the other actors, of course, their characters' fates are more or less up in the air still from their perspectives. And also I think just the fact that he was only there for 2 episodes, whatever issues he was having doing a regular series were not as magnified for him during this 2-week stint or whatever, how long it took to film these episodes. I quite enjoyed his reappearance, except for the aforementioned lack of contact with Garibaldi, which I just really didn't like at all. But whatever the behind the scenes issues might or might not have been, that's most unfortunate, because I do think it hurt the episode a bit. If they could have only came up with a reason why, he even like a throwaway line says he has another purpose to serve or something, he has to stay. So
they did mention something. It was so offhand though, that when Sinclair ages, because he's gone through this same barrier twice, he didn't want Garibaldi to suffer. But that, to me, I was like, okay, whatever, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But
and also I think I took it to also that he knew Michael would go in the past with him.
And that's why I'm saying, what would be wrong with that?
Right.
Like, because I could use a good right hand man.
Would have Michael gone through the process to become a Minbari?
Would he have to?
Yes. Yeah, they said at the end that they would not have accepted a human. The very end of the episode, they said that's why he had to go through his change. And so they would not have accepted a human.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But
also I think
it's still a hand wave.
This is circular lodging. He didn't go because he didn't go.
Right.
When, as Jeff says, I'm going because I've always gone. I also read a thing is he picked the name Valen because Valen was the name that was picked. So who came up with the name Valen? No one. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I read that in Lurker's Guide, by the way. That was not me originally. And
that reminds me, you were saying there was another podcast where they were constantly screaming that Sinclair was Valen?
Yes, this is, I think it might have been Texas on the Shock, but one of the other emails that Karen will read, they said that there was a podcast that was 2 parts. Non-spoilery, and then they would take a break and do spoilery. And to start the spoilery, they would always say, and Sinclair is Valen. And now we're on the spoilery part of our episode, which is funny because you would think they'd say Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Right.
Yeah.
Rosebud is a sled. Whatever they would rotate.
He was dead the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder, did they know that he was coming back on the show? Like, how could you make that leap without? Because
this is a podcast way after Babylon 5 ended.
And they've already watched it?
Yeah, they've already watched it. So this was a podcast dealing with just any other science fiction show.
Oh, okay.
And so they didn't do specific Babylon 5. They would be doing like 12 Monkeys or a Farscape or a Fringe. And then we're going to do our non-spoilery talk, and now we're going to do our spoilery talk.
Because I thought they were guessing that before it actually happened. But
no, I did not. I don't know if anyone guessed that till maybe.
How could you? You didn't know until he came back, right? So
and I know a couple people may have suspected at the end of the first episode, right? Yeah.
I have pretty
Well,
good
You
handwriting.
yes,
do.
you do.
You
Okay,
do.
right.
You got yourself a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, for those
Sorry,
of
I
you
just held up
not
a.
watching the video,
I
Karen
just
just
held up
held up
a. Yeah,
a
go ahead.
writing of her print, and it is darn good.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry.
I thought it was nice Zach meeting Sinclair because Zach wasn't on the show when he was there.
Hmm.
And so I thought it was a really nice moment where Ambassador, right? This I'm going next. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really nice moment. I don't know if that was something that he asked because we know that Jeff Conway is a huge fan of the show before he got hired. So I wonder if he went to JMS and said, "Hey, is there any way I could just have one little
Sinclair.
scene?"
Hmm.
Though there are complaints of people saying, "Why didn't I wanted to see Sinclair interact with Jakar and all these other characters?" And he says, "There was only so much room."
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
says, "I
why
could
would
only do
he?
so much."
Why would he interact with Jakar or Londo or whatever? He's not there to talk to them.
Hmm.
So that was part of my thing. I love that when Zach meets him, he says, "How long are you going to stay?" And it starts this whole cryptic thing. This is his first interaction with someone where he says something without saying something. And he says, "That's an interesting question. That's more interesting than you think."
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, come on. Why can't you just say, "I don't know"?
It's
But
complicated, Karen.
yeah, it's complicated would be fine. I guess they didn't have Facebook yet, which they didn't in the 90s, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool. They used it to illustrate how his character was going to interact with people, and also we got to see Zach, which we haven't seen him in the last few episodes. So
Yeah. I'm just going to mention this now before I forget or before it gets buried. But one of the best small moments in these two episodes for me was because I've mentioned this before that I felt bad for Sheridan, that I thought that he and Delin had a kind of a connection too, and now that's obviously moved over to Sinclair. But there was a beat where he looked at Sheridan and Delin interacting with each other, and he gave a nod of approval, and I thought that was a nice little beat that
yeah,
really I thought that really spoke volumes as to where his state of mind. So I thought that was I just thought that was a great moment. I really loved that
thought
moment.
of you during this episode, these two episodes, because when they revealed that he's Valen at the end, I'm thinking, oh, there can't be a romantic thing between them because of their relationship.
Right.
So at least Lou, I think, will be vindicated a little bit, or he'll understand the relationship thing. I think about weird stuff when I watch these, but
don't we all?
yeah, okay.
I thought that was a great moment as too, and I'm so glad you brought it up. It did seem like, and I thought of you as well, that because you thought, by the way, I did a deep dive last night into it is out there. I talked about I bought all of the J. Michael Straczynski script books, and in the very last one, he gave the original synopsis of what he thought the show would be. And I remind me to tell you the story at the end of this season because there's spoilers in there that I can't give away yet.
Okay.
But let's just say there is a world where Sinclair and Delin are romantically involved.
Okay.
So remind me to share that, okay?
Okay. So
I guess
I'm curious then, with the reboot that he's trying to get going, what is his goal with that? Is he going to continue the story, or is he going to retell the original story over again?
I think he's been very quiet about it.
Okay.
But he has said it is not a retelling. It will be set in the B5 universe, and there may be some of the same characters. There may be different characters.
Will it be Babylon 6?
No, he said it will be Babylon 5.
Okay.
And he will just tell unique stories. Like
the original Star Trek kind of thing?
Yeah, but
one-offs?
Yeah, and what I gather is like Strange New Worlds is telling stories set in the original B5 Star Trek universe before Kirk became captain of the Enterprise. This would be I'm using the same characters, but we're going to tell a different story.
Okay.
And I know you guys because it is very spoilery, but they're in the animated movie.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, he goes from Sheridan goes through alternate timelines.
Okay. And is
And one of
this is the mechanism, sorry, is the mechanism in the animated feature related to what happened to Sheridan in the second episode?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They are using tachyon waves to do something in Minbar, and that does not work well for him. So,
okay. Interesting.
So yes, it is the similar thing, but
okay.
He goes to one world where the shadows won and Earth is going to be destroyed. And then he goes to another world where the Shadow War never happened. And that is where fans think that if they do more animated movies, that they would play in that universe.
Okay.
Where the Shadow War hasn't happened yet because IEX never went to Zahadun and woke the shadows.
I like those alternate universe things.
Yes. Yeah. And his thought is, I think he's more thinking of it like a Battlestar Galactica reboot, right? Like the premise is that there's a space station in Earth, but I'm just going to write my own story, is what I think he's picturing.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, Star Trek has a lot of those.
Yeah.
Almost every Star Trek series is set in the Star Trek universe, but all new stories. I'm all for that.
Don't get me started on that.
And he,
and the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah. And his thought is that I am a better writer than I was in the 90s. I've changed. And so therefore, I'd be curious, what stories could I tell with these kind of characters, right?
Plus, the bar for the medium has been risen quite a bit since then, too. So, especially with streaming shows.
Yeah, he has more toys to play with.
Yeah, and I also think that one of the reasons why Babylon 5, and we are off on a tangent, and I hope everyone's enjoying it, but one of the reasons why he was a firm believer, and he still is, and I think Aaron Sorkin is a fine example of West Wing was very expensive for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is that Aaron Sorkin would finish the script maybe just 2 or 3 days before it was supposed to film, or 1 day before it filmed.
Well, I guess you can do that when you got standing sets.
That's just it. Sometimes you didn't have standing sets.
Okay.
And so the costuming, set design would all have to pay overtime to create these sets.
Yeah.
So JMS said, if you get the script done 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it is before you need to film, therefore you don't have to pay overtime. You don't have to pay crew, and therefore you can come under budget because you're doing that. Go ahead.
Yeah. The problem is what you write on the page and what's filmed on the set sometimes don't match, or something comes up and you say, ooh, that moment would really play well if we did this or this. Both approaches have their problems. If you lock yourself in too far ahead, you kill the magic of the moment, or the possible magic of the moment, kind of things that happen on set that you didn't expect. But sorry for the interruption, Jeff.
No, that's perfect, because there's a couple of scenes in both episodes we're discussing that felt ad-libbed. And Joe said, no, nothing was ad-libbed. Everything was similar to Dan and Amy Sherman-Perlow. I'm getting their name wrong. The guy from Gilmore Girls, the couple from Gilmore Girls, and Mavis Maisel. They do not allow ad-libbing whatsoever. The script is the script. Aaron Sorkin famously said there was a scene in West Wing where there were 2 commas, and they said someone's got to call him and ask if that's a mistake. And they're like, it's obviously a typo. We have to call him. And they asked, which comma do you want us to delete?
That's funny.
Yeah. So, yeah.
1, 2.
Yeah.
Comma 1, 2.
So, yeah, there are some things.
right?
Versus there are other shows I think that work just as well. I know I know Friday Night Lights was famous for they had a script, but they blocked and they did almost everything in practical sets.
Hmm.
And the director had two or three cameras like go, and that they were able to play around with their dialogue. And the male lead, God, I'm dropping every names today, but the guy who played Coach Taylor and the
Oh yeah,
fabulous,
yeah.
yeah, he said, welcome to us, because you had to know your role, because they may change the dialogue, they just never change the meaning, because
Mm.
that's, and so I think both things work. But the
Yep.
point of that is because Joe Stravinsky is so firm in his process, he
Hmm.
will be able to do a lot of fun things and not go over budget with all these new toys with a bigger budget. Because of his ability, they will be able to do a lot of things and put it all on the page, put it
Right.
all on the screen.
Right.
All right, back to the episode. That was a fun discussion. Thank you. All
Sidebar.
right. So yeah, all right. So this is a general term, but we are going to go everywhere. So I'm going to start with you, Lou.
Uh-huh.
Okay, White Star needs to go back. The Babylon 4 needs to go in the past because it's always gone in the past, and it is the way that the first Shadow War was won, by having the forces of light, the Vorlons, the Minbari, everyone else, using Babylon 4 as a base. They were able to win the war. Because the current Shadows know that's important, they're going to go and try to destroy B4 in the present timeline, so it can't go to the past. So therefore, the White Star needs to go help this. This
So
is very
timey-wimey.
timey-wimey, very circular reason. Give me all your thoughts about them all together. I did love the discussions with, it looks like, and I've read that Michael Hare and Bruce Boxleiter got along perfectly. They
Hmm.
loved working together and having a lot of fun. Go all of this, and let's talk about seeing Zathras again, anywhere up to where Sheridan starts time jumping.
Okay. Jeez. Yeah. Uh, I guess the precepts that the show's operating under with its time travel um, rules is interesting. It seems very locked down, very deterministic. So you can't. There's no illusion of free will, which is always problematic in a story, I find. So that was. It's always that thing of you go back in time to prevent something from happening, but your participation in that event is what causes it to happen in the first place, kind of logic. That's always, that kind of time travel storytelling is always difficult to stop paradoxes from happening in. And I think that these two episodes did a good job of sidestepping any of those types of issues. I'm going to circle back to my point earlier about I didn't get the vibe like we get with other time travel shows, that the scenes that we were seeing from the previous season's episodes didn't really strike a chord with me as being the same scenes that we had seen previously. Like in Back to the Future, even like the second movie, they did a really good job of integrating the previous footage with intercutting the new scenes in it. But I didn't get the same vibe from this. It almost felt different to me for the most part. So that was a little weird, but it was fun seeing Susan and the Jedi guy. What's his name? Marcus? Is it Marcus?
Marcus.
Yeah, seeing them sneaking around the station and trying to set up the power diversion for the command center so that they could set up the station to time jump and all that. So their interaction was fun. And like you said, I thought that the scenes between Sheridan and Sinclair were pretty good. It's always fun in a show to see, even though he's now a Minbari delegate, but they were basically on the same power level in the show, and so it's good to see the two commanders respecting each other, even though their backgrounds are fairly different, but not completely. But I did sense that they did enjoy working together in those scenes, so I did that quite a bit, and it was interesting to see Sheridan's reactions to Sinclair's requests for Garibaldi not to be brought back onto the White Star and that, but he didn't press him on it. which is either a sign of respect or they just didn't have the time to. But I wish he would have. But and I guess what I'm in a way really looking forward to is seeing how Garibaldi reacts in the next episode. Or are they just going to brush that under the carpet? I sure hope they don't, because in a story that's so serialized, he should be pissed off, I would think. And I'll be interested to see whether or not they're going to follow up on that or not. Because part of my dissatisfaction with Garibaldi being put to the side is I don't think his character has really been used that much this season or in any meaningful way. He's had some interactions with the Doctor, but beyond that, he's really been just a story device for pretty well every episode this season.
He and Jakar have.
Yeah, but but that was just to do that reveal. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. They've underused him, but
yeah. But so that's really the gist of all that stuff for me. The White Star has to be there because it has to be there, kind of thing. It would have been interesting to see if they decided not to go, what would have happened. But that's just, or if they could have built up some tension where it was difficult for the White Star to get there. Maybe there was a spy on the ship and it was trying to sabotage the mission or something. I don't know, but that all ran pretty straightforward. There wasn't really any tension about whether or not they were actually going to do what they were going to do. So that would have been interesting to see. But I enjoyed it. I thought everybody played their parts well, and it was fun seeing them run around the station and try not to be noticed or caught by the Babylon 4 crew.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. Even if they had made that section of space more unstable for the ship, that might have been have been a little more interesting. But I understand why they didn't do that. There was a lot of action in the 2 episodes. I liked that we got to see Marcus interact with Entilza. Is that what he was at that point? Because then we get to see him not quite as cocky as he has been. He is in charge of the Rangers on Babylon 5. And so we see him in leader mode, knowing what it is he has to do and doing it. But then we see him around Sinclair, and we see that he immediately reverts to this, okay, whatever you say. And also him, and I'm doing air quotes, translating what Sinclair is saying. And here's the quote: "Captain, if I were you, I'd quit while I was ahead." Back on Minbar, there was a saying among the other Rangers: the only way to get a straight answer out of Ranger 1 was to look at every reply in a mirror while hanging upside down from the ceiling. So he's saying to everybody, there's no way you're going to get a straight answer from him, and so you might as well just deal with it. Where he has shown before he knows a lot and he does a lot. Now he is just as lost as everyone else, going along with what's happening. I think he might have been taken by surprise a little bit by this whole thing. I also liked, and we didn't talk about this, but the fact that Susan had to hear that message from herself, that would have been an interesting thing to experience. And I understand they needed her to go because of all the grunt work that needed to be done on there, but I wasn't quite sure why she needed to go otherwise. I do like that they're definitely setting up more between her and Marcus. The conversation they had about happy accidents and all that, where Marcus says there's no such thing as an accident, and then all of a sudden he puts his little bow stick through the panel where okay, maybe I'm wrong. I liked all their interactions in that part where they're on the White Star, they get their marching orders. I do think that there was a lot of, at least in their mind, resistance to what was happening. Why are we doing this? This seems dangerous. Why should we take your word that we all have to go? Especially on Susan's part. She's saying, I'll be in the car. There's a lot of little parts with her that I feel like she is us in those moments. Like we would be doing that too. I'm sorry, I don't want to go. This seems really dangerous to me. Out. Even after she hears the distress call from herself, she is very reluctant to jump in with both feet. There was a lot of character interaction that I found very interesting and dynamics changing. between characters. So I appreciated that from a character perspective. And then there were funny moments, there were serious moments. I think, like Lou said, I did miss Garibaldi, although part of why I understand that a little bit is who was running Babylon 5. They need a commander and they all leave. So who would, Corwin? Is Corwin going to run Babylon 5? Because he's the most senior crew member that we see there. So Garibaldi going back made sense to me, although it was sad that he and Sinclair didn't interact because they're such good friends. And I feel like Sinclair and Sheridan, like Lou was saying, they had this kinship. A lot of it, I think, is because they're both soldiers. They were both veterans of the same war. And I like that they had that kind of like a brotherhood type of reaction to each other. I found that very cool. And Sheridan obviously thinks very highly of Sinclair. And I think Sinclair feels the same way about Sheridan. Sheridan, he's famous for having the only battle in the Minbar War that was won. And Sinclair was part of the battle that ended the war. So they both had these very significant parts in that war. And so they would have that kind of respect for each other, the kinship, the fellowship, the fact that they're both soldiers and have shifted in their mindset to other roles. I thought all those things were very cool. And I know I'm rambling, but anyway.
Not at all. One thing I wanted to mention is thanks to Texas a la Shock, I get now a little extra joy when going, there was the point they made in the last email, whether it was, right. I'm over here stacking marbles, I'm in the car. I wonder if they just, as they're rewatching, go, that would be a nice throwaway line. Share that in your feedback if that is just you remember Texas a la Shock, or is that something you do? But it does bring me a little bit of joy. I did love, I think Marcus had some great lines this episode, talking about how he obviously has spent time with the ambassador as a teacher and as someone who is in charge of the Rangers. They're very close. And Marcus says, let me go with you, right? Half a truth is worse than a lie. And he's the one who calls Sinclair out. Hey, jumping ahead a little bit.
Very respectfully.
Yes. And you could tell he adores the man. And I do like it's circular, not really circular reasoning, right? I just assumed this would be the worst time for us to be caught. So I knew we would be caught. This Marcus has this kind of feeling. Yeah. And I don't believe in luck. And then he hits the panel. Or on the other hand, nothing phases him really much. He just goes with the flow, which I love.
I think he's been conditioned.
Yes.
To go with the flow.
Yeah. Any thoughts about Zathras? Now, Zathras, in honor of our buddy Charles, who wasn't able to visit us, is Charles's favorite character. And Zathras does have some great lines and is just a lot of fun. Any thoughts about anything else anything to share about Zathras there, Lou?
Yeah, I liked him a bit better in these two episodes, but I still don't really like. He was on the other planet all this time. Like,
yeah, he's been with the Great Machine.
Yeah, so where the hell was he in all the other episodes? So that was weird to me. Yeah, he had some good lines in that, and he's loyal to Sinclair, so that's good. But yeah, I can't really say much more than that. He played his part in the episode. Okay, I don't think to me, he doesn't jump out as an interesting character or anything. He's just like comic relief, side character kind of guy. So sorry, Charles, but yeah, he's just okay to me. Nothing to get too excited about.
I like him. He's not my favorite character on the show ever, but I do think that seeing him in this context, where we saw him just be this unhinged weirdo in the first, Babylon Squared, in that other episode, now we get to see what his purpose is. We got to see the entire context of that jump back 2 years kind of thing. I do think his Yoda speak was interesting. And the fact that he actually ends up being the most confusing person to listen to, but the one who explains the one, I thought was a nice dichotomy. And I did the interaction between Susan and Zathras when they're talking down in the hole where she's trying to tell him what to do. And he's, yeah, Zathras do what Zathras do. He's very, like he says, he's a pack mule, but he does what he's supposed to do. And I feel like I don't know how to explain it. He's very okay with how his life is going. He says, I'll die like I die, I'll live like I live, kind of thing. Very kind of zen about the whole thing. Even though he seems to be really chaotic, I feel like he's got a handle on what his life is about, which is such a weird whole thing. And I like that we got to see those throwback scenes when he shows up on Babylon 4 and when Sinclair and Garibaldi interact with him. I thought that was cool. And the one thing that made me sad after this, and I was looking up actors and things like I do after each thing, was that it was played by Tim Choate, and he died in a motorcycle accident in the early 2000s, which made me sad. I watched a little bit of an interview with him where he was invited to a convention in the UK, and he was so excited to be included in being part of a convention. And he just seemed to have such a great attitude about his acting and what he contributed to the fan base and just how he felt about his character. And he said something like, if you're a plumber or whatever and you get a chance to go to a convention and someone says, I liked your L joint and can you sign it, you should do it, because being part of this is one of the best things I've done in my life. I thought it was cool that he got to, on a real world thing, it was cool that he got to do that through Babylon 5. But yeah, I liked the character. I felt like he was much deeper than someone would think just looking at him on the surface. So
Yeah,
again, I'm rambling.
No, I really like him. I think what's interesting to me is the scene where they explain the scene where in the first Babylon Squared, right, he sees Sinclair and his eyes light up and he recognizes him. And then, no, not the one. And now then you got the payoff of, which I did think was a little chunky, with I've met you, but you haven't met me. Oh, it's very important for you. That was wow, that was a random thing to say, but it needed to be said. And then you got that payoff of him going. I did his summary of the Trinity of past, present, future, warrior, worker, religious, 9 members of the Grey Council, 3 languages, which I guess I had remembered. I think vaguely I remembered. Yeah, I think Zathras is just a lot of fun, and added to the list of, someone was talking on Twitter yesterday that a lot of people from Batman animated series we've lost. And I think that specifically they're talking about Arlene Sorkin, right? But I don't think any series has lost as many as Babylon 5.
No, I don't think so either.
And that is one of the things that I loved, is Straczynski called every living member of the cast that appeared on the main stars and said, if I do this, we are going to have to use new actors to play our friends' parts. If any of you has a problem with it, I will stop. And all of them said no, that I think all of them would be okay someone else playing the character in a tribute. And it is not spoilery, but the very last scene is they list everyone that they had lost on the cast. And it is just sad how many people have gone on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, moving on. We've got Sheridan stabilizer is messed up.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Always.
Because this is something that happened early in the episode that I found really cool. We learn why the Grey Council is called the Grey Council, where Delenn is holding her hand up to the candle and she says, we are the gray, the shadow on the world or whatever. And I thought that was very cool. There were little beats in these episodes that I found interesting, and that was one of the things. So anyway.
No, I think that's a really good point that just would be easy to miss, that a lot of this is explained, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Sheridan is lost in time. He doesn't have a TARDIS. He doesn't have a DeLorean. He doesn't have a time tunnel. And so we end up where he is in front of a very older Londo. And Londo is welcome back to the abyss. And that's where we end our cliffhanger. So how much time did you guys give it between? Did you savor that ending or just go immediately to the next episode, Lou?
I savored it. I really liked the dynamics of that scene, and then it felt very Shakespearean, and I thought it was well staged. The only quibble I have is how could Londo not see that Sheridan hasn't aged?
He did, though. He jumped into his future body and his hair was gray in the front.
I thought it was a little bit gray, but it just didn't look like enough to me for that time jump.
I just think he looks the same
as
he does.
That's my quibble. I just didn't think he looked old enough in those scenes. But it's at this kind of moment I'm going, wow, this is like the end of the series, isn't it? Are they giving away the whole thing here? So there must be, because we have 2 seasons to go, there must be a lot going on in between there. And I'm looking forward to seeing all that stuff. And also, of course, that creature that's in his neck, like where the heck did that come from? Is that from the shadows or is that from somebody else? And if he's got that creature and other people must see that, they want him there or they're really not very observant. So I'm intrigued to see how that all plays out. And then, of course, to get to see Jakar with the eye patch was pretty cool as well. So he reminded me of, what's the guy's name? The guy from Metal Gear Solid. I can't remember his name right now. The video game.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So, it was really well done. Very Shakespearean. And I almost felt like Khan was there and says, from hell's heart, I stab at thee, kind of thing.
Yeah, very Shakespearean.
It was pretty cool.
Question?
Sure. And Karen, did you skip any?
No, I went straight to the next episode.
Okay.
I have a hard time stopping it at the end of one episode, so I just let it go. I want to ask Lou, though, what do you think about it? We've mentioned that you don't see a way for Londo to redeem himself.
Right.
So seeing this creature have influence on them, does that help you at all reconcile with him?
No.
Nope. Okay.
No, that's
he's still
he
irredeemable.
He put himself on that path, so he's left himself open to that. The one thing I forgot to mention about that scene is, and I love Veer stepping out of the shadows at the end.
Yeah, me too.
Picking up the pieces. that was awesome.
Very cool.
This is, I think, a great example of, boy, I want answers. Okay, so in this we get Londo obviously does become Emperor.
Yeah.
It appears Veer picking up the Emperor little necklace. I think there's an actual term for that because I looked it up, because Outlander, everyone on the British has that little metal guard that's on their chest and there's a term for it. He picks that up. So it appears, okay, maybe Veer is Emperor. Will Jakar really kill Londo? Yes, he did. But it opens up all these other questions. Why did Londo say, my Ducal good friend? Was he just saying the way that people do? There was a great scene in The Last Resort where a Navy SEAL is talking to the local island kind of baddie and says, and when I say my friend, that means you're not my friend, just in case you're in doubt, right? So
doesn't Khan say that at some point too?
Yeah.
Kirk, my old friend. Yeah. So I feel like it's like that.
Yeah.
What is this keeper? Now he does say that you can't see him unless it's sleeping and it can't hold its liquor. So I think most people can't see it, but it's there. And what does that mean? How does that get there? The Shadow War was won. Someone complained about that. And he said, you really thought JMS was like, you really thought we weren't going to win? I'm doing a TV show, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what does it mean when if the shadows were defeated, how could they destroy Centauri, the Centauri world? So it gives you a lot more questions along with the answers, which is lovely, right?
Yep, for sure.
Londo does allow. I did think it was great where he was so angry to him, and then when he comes back, he is a totally different character, and that's because I put on a good performance. It was happy. So he was doing that for whatever this keeper is, which I thought was really well done. And we get our first kiss. Sheridan and Delenn kiss for the first time.
Yep.
And JMS said he wanted to have fun with this is his first kiss, but not her first kiss. Right. That they have had, hopefully when they've had a child, they've done some kissing. I would think Sheridan would be a little bit involved in a little bit of foreplay and some cuddling. So I thought that was nice that for fans at that time, when are they going to kiss? When are they going to kiss? We get a kiss with different circumstances. And we find out that they've got a kid named David, which I assume is after his father. So thoughts on those reveals? And Lou, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, it was another great scene where they've answered the question about where their relationship is going between those two characters. But at the same time, you're wondering how did they get in the position that they are in, or what was the events that led up to why they're being jailed like this, and the offhand remark about their child and where is the child and how old is he at this time and what's he doing and what are their positions. Obviously he's not the commander of the space station anymore, so if he's not, then who is? And is the space station's Babylon 5 still around? Did it survive the Shadow War? So it's a lot of questions answering, but also a lot of questions being raised at the same time. And then I still have that niggle about Sheridan not looking his age, but in this one, you don't know what the time jump is, so maybe it's more acceptable or not as egregious as the previous Londo scene. But yeah, it was quite intriguing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the show goes from these two episodes going forward.
All right.
I gotta say, Bruce Boxleitner gives good kiss. I feel like no matter what I've seen him in, when he kisses someone, it looks super real. And do you guys know what I mean by that?
Yep.
Yeah. Garibaldi had a kiss in an earlier episode, and it was just terrible. And so I feel like these looked very natural. It looked like that he and Mira Furlan maybe got along very well. And so it fed into that. I liked those episodes. And like you said, Delenn knows more about their relationship than Sheridan does. So it was nice to see it from two different perspectives, where she knows what's going on, but she was also told that John saw this. So now she's actually, this is where he saw us in the future. And he's told me that he sees this. So I have to, she's a little delicate there, but she does give away a lot of stuff. So I guess their son is named David because he was named David. It's one of those circular things. I guess we got to name him David because his name is David. I did like that. And I like that immediately they're in it together. Even though he's not in the same place as she is, they're a team. They hold hands as they walk out. And I thought it was really touching to see those scenes, and to see it from almost like two different perspectives was very cool.
Yeah, I think David is his father's name. I think for some reason that's why I thought. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, right? Where she says, "Oh yeah, you've talked about this," and you would think I wonder if it's one of those. Yeah, of course you will. And then, oh, okay, I guess you were right. We do get you can't change too much, but then she does say, "Don't go to Zahadun. Don't go to Zahadun." which is definitely a lamppost, right? Now then he's told a couple of times, if you go to Zahudun, you're going to die. His wife is now saying, don't go to Zahudun. So why would you go to Zahudun?
It's already been there.
Exactly. And
Right.
I remember...
And I'm guessing it's one of those things where even though he's been warned, there comes a situation where he is forced to go. And part of me was like, okay, are you just jealous because his wife is probably there?
What made you think of that?
What, me? About his wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've discussed that his wife was killed at Zahadun and that there was a kind of some seed planted that maybe she's not dead. So when I hear Zahadun and when it's in context of Sheridan, I think about, oh, is he going to run into his wife there, who has been presumed dead?
With that knowledge, did you hear anything specific about the lens flash forward where she drops the snow globe?
Okay, why are you doing that to me? I had no idea who that was in the doorway, and now you're putting in my brain that it might be his wife in the doorway.
Or maybe not.
Okay, maybe not. I like that too, where she drops the snow globe. I'm hoping that means that at the end of this series, it's not in a snow globe all along in the mind of an autistic
elsewhere.
child.
Yeah, I apologize, Karen, because
No, that's all right.
No, because this is one of those things where if we're playing hot cold,
I was hot.
You are blistering.
Okay.
And
no, I just think they've given enough hits about his wife and Zahadun.
Okay. After the fact, you can go back and listen and you'll go, oh, that's why Jesse was saying that. Okay. How about you, Lou? Anything you picked up from that?
No, I honestly didn't really understand that.
Okay.
Good. Snow globe, where did that come from? So it was
right.
like, okay.
Yeah, confusing.
Yeah. Someone shows up at Delenn's quarters, you hear a voice, and the voice was enough to make her drop this. Yes.
And it's a female voice. So,
yes, it is.
Yeah. So it's not her son or anything, or Zathras or whatever. It's
but for her to have that reaction, it would mean that she would have to recognize that voice. So how can that be?
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I hate you, Jesse.
Welcome to Farscape world.
So
yes.
Rude. Yep. But you get where I would make that connection.
Yes, absolutely.
Without
I do.
Knowing anything.
And I don't know if you want to do this, but if you go back and listen with this context, you might be able to figure out what I'm talking about.
Okay. I won't.
Okay, good.
Because I don't want to.
Because I will tell you, I did not get it till afterwards. And then listening, watching the episode this time, I went, how did anyone miss this?
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I have no idea who it is.
Yeah. How could, damn, why don't you just show us how the magic trick's done, Michael Cervinsky? And then it's nice though, but remembering, I didn't catch it the first time.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I have no idea who that is in the doorway. Now, of course, you planted seed in my brain, but that's all right.
And I listeners are going to be upset.
No.
Don't
know the context.
The spoilers.
Even if it is his wife, we don't know the context. We don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
It's not really a spoiler to me.
Yeah, because I remember watching this going, I cannot picture a reason why, if you've been warned by Kosh, if you go to Zahudun, I won't protect you, you will die. Your wife in the future tells you, don't go to Zahudun. How could you be so stubborn to go?
And but we've seen that before in other shows where they're
because he's gone, yes.
Where they're forced in whatever situation to go. Is now that he's been told this and again, it's a kind of a trope where you try to subvert the future, but you can't. Now that he knows not to go, he's going to try not to go, but maybe instead of the circumstances that were in that universe, now someone kidnaps him and takes him there. There's always something that makes
or
that
he
happen.
Finds out that his wife is still alive and on Zahadin.
Exactly. I have a feeling it's just going to be something that is so either compelling or something that is forced upon him. That's a thing in science
Either
fiction.
he sees there's a chance to end the war, or he finds out his wife's there.
Right.
It's got to be something like between those two kind of possibilities.
Right. Or that he's taken against his will, or there's a few different things. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's kind of part of the
I wouldn't like that, but it could happen. Yeah.
I wouldn't love it either. I'm just saying that's
Yep.
Yeah.
I got you.
I want to jump ahead so much after this discussion.
You get where we're coming from, though, right?
I do, and I am just so happy.
So are we burning?
You guys are burning so much.
Okay, good.
I love it. Here's my nitpick.
I love putting you in that situation, by the way.
Yes, I love this too. This was one of the reasons why we wanted to do this. All right, if I have a nitpick of the episode, I just truly don't care about the blue spacesuit Monty. I ignore that. I guess it's supposed to be a mystery. I don't care who is in the blue spaceship. And for those of you who don't know, I'm doing a thing of the 3-card Monty where you're supposed to find the queen. Any thoughts on by the way, there was a little trivia. This was a 2001 spacesuit that was around. After Babylon Squared, they were like, yeah, we don't need this anymore. And then he realized, oh, crap, I've got to have a second one. And they had to rebuild it. Any thoughts on that storyline?
I just thought it was Delenn because she takes her stabilizer and puts it on Sheridan, and I assume that she got in the suit and went to Zathras. I don't know, but it's such an unimportant part to me, like it is to you. I don't care, to be honest. Even if it comes up at some other point in the show, I'll just be like, oh, okay. That's good. But yeah, I don't really care about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Lou?
Yeah, I'm in the same vein as you guys. It looks visually like it should be a very big moment, but it doesn't really change anything which one of the three it is. They just, like you said, it's a 3-car Monty, but you're thinking it's probably Sinclair, but no, it was Delenn. So yeah, okay. So
yeah, who cares?
So what happens after that? Does it change anything? Mm-hmm. It doesn't fundamentally change anything in the story. So it's just, oh, you tricked us. Good for you. But
yeah,
okay. But I did the reference perhaps to the fact that Zathras makes that you are the one. You're the one in the past. You're the one now, and you're the one in the future. It ties into the spacesuit thing. It could have been either one of them because they're all the ones kind of thing. It doesn't really matter, but at least in that particular instance,
Sheridan.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I thought that was a very good sign to explain why not the one. What is the one? They're all the one in their own way.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really nice reveal that Zathras did a good job on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we talked about 3 and 1 when we talked about Jennifer in 12 Monkeys, where she sees herself past, present, future. That again is another trope, that it's like the fates or the Holy Trinity. 3 and 1 is a very used trope, and I did like that they use the term the one to subvert our conceptions of who is the one, that it's actually 3 of them. And I also like that we understand why Delenn is so upset that now the Grey Council is imbalanced, because that is their whole society is built around that 3 and 1 kind of thing. And so that stops that symmetry from happening. So I thought it was very cool that we get that. And it's a bigger reveal than it looks, because it has broader implication in the series, that their whole society is built around this, that these 3 people are the key to everything that happens and everything that has happened and everything that will happen. I thought that was very cool, that conversation that he has with them and explains to them, you are the one that was, you are the one that is, and you are the one who will be. And I think it also enlightens those 3 characters, that now they know where their place is, what they're meant to do, what their destiny is. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Lou, any other thoughts on that before we go to Jeffrey's one-way trip?
I can't remember in the Minbari history the point at which they mentioned the splitting of the race into the three castes, the scientists, soldiers, and workers. So that reveal here was that it was tied to them was interesting, and I thought that was a pretty cool reveal. I don't know I always assumed historically though that race caste was in place a lot longer than what it appears to be. Did I miss that point, or was that not clear? Or
No, I think once again we have a circular reasoning.
Mm.
Sinclair spends a couple of years on Minbar, right?
Yep.
As ambassador. Obviously did a lot of studying and working. We get the great reveal or that flashback when Narum says you talk like a Minbari. And there is one point where Sinclair was raised by Jesuits, religious caste.
Right.
He was a soldier, military,
Mm-hmm.
and as a spent time as commander administrator, so that would have been a worker.
Right.
So he has been all three castes.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back and becomes Valen.
Right.
That is one of the big reveals
Mm-hmm.
where they would not accept a human. So I remember going, oh, yeah, the machine, and they show him doing that. Now, I do think, okay, I guess there's settings because she becomes part human, part Minbari, but he goes from all the way human to full Minbari. We have a couple of Vorlons there that have come. We don't know really where they come. That was one of your questions, Lou. We just know they're there. And all of a sudden, the great leader, Valen, who had incredibly accurate predictions because he lived it and he knows what happened. So he set up the Great Council where there would be 3, 3, and 3. Why? Because the Great Council always had 3, 3, and 3.
And you just said he spent a couple of years there studying, and he studied himself in order to be himself.
Yes.
Oh, and we also got the Cones of Dunshire back again, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a huge reveal. I know that Michael O'Hare was very pleased with how they ended up giving this to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that this was not in the original pitch that he had done. This is something JMS pivoted on once he brought in Sheridan. He thought, oh, this would be a kind of cool thing. And it tells you why, because he had a human soul, became Minbari. I guess that is what led to Minbaris having human souls. And you assume, did Valen have children? You assume he would, which is there, because we do know Delenn is a direct descendant from Valen. We've heard that in earlier episodes. So it is very much, in the terms of 12 Monkeys, the snake chasing itself.
Yep.
Which
the
just
beginning is the end, which is the beginning, which is the end,
So, Karen, let's start with you. Sinclair becomes Valen, and he was always supposed to have been.
That was out of left field for me. That was definitely a huge surprise. And I love that they could pull one over on me like this when I'm a pretty prolific sci-fi watcher, and I like to think that I can get stuff that's going to happen. And this was literally just a 100% surprise. And a lot of things made sense after the reveal in my mind, but it wasn't anything that I had put together. So I thought it was very cool. Having the Vorlons there was interesting. And
was one of them Kosh? I don't know. Was one of them Kosh?
Yeah, might have been Kosh. Who knows?
Yeah. And why were they there? That was my question.
We do know that the Vorlons are involved in that war, in the 1,000-year war or whatever. So maybe they were around because of that battle that had happened.
or because
Babylon.
their understanding of time is different than our normal
Right.
races, so they knew that he was going to be there, so they were just
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
whatever it was. And I
Yeah,
do think that that kind of tells me that's why Kosh and Delenn were working together, that they have this history of being involved with each other, those two races. I thought that was cool as well. Just an interesting kind of cool, nothing earth shattering. But I loved that now we understand he wrote a note to himself, which was cool, right? And we see why now Delenn has such a connection with Sinclair, why they asked him specifically to be on Babylon 5. Maybe they didn't know, but they knew he was going to be important. Maybe they were told by the Vorlons he's going to be important, so he needs to be on Babylon 5. It brings a lot of things together. That one revelation like knits a lot of the tapestry together. So I just thought it was really cool that they gave him that role. And I love that JMS could pivot to something that made so much sense.
yeah. It's interesting thinking about those two Vorlons now and Valen. It's another trio, right? Another trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the
Yeah.
Vorlons showed up there to boost Valen because he's just a Minbari, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
he's there with two Vorlons that are showing images to these other Minbari, that should be some sort of religious significance to them. So it makes him, Valen, seem like he's a gift from heaven or God or something. I don't know,
Right.
but it's very interesting. But I
Yeah.
would like to know if one of those Vorlons was Kosh.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
me too.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is when they came investigate, did Sinclair / Valen go, all right, so let me explain this to you, okay? I'm from the future. In the future, Kosh, and the guy goes, me? Yes, you. We're going to meet, and you're like, okay, I guess we're going to believe you. Yes, but it was really cool to see the Vorlons out of their suit, and I love Zathras calling, we've been waiting for you. And then it was such a great reveal with Delenn telling everyone, and Marcus especially,
Yeah.
wait a minute, Minbari, not Minbari born, and all the
Oh yeah,
stuff.
that scene was cool.
Yeah,
Where he puts it all together.
yeah, it was just really nice. There had been thought that it would be cool to have done a spin-off movie or a series set in that timeline on the First War to see Valen and him setting up everything. Didn't happen. We have now lost Jeffrey O'Hara, as we just talked about, a lot of people. But I just thought this was, to me, really shocking. And wow, what a great setup of everything they're building to this payoff is so well done. And this is one of the reasons why when people say Babylon 5 is one of the best written stories, I think this is what a lot of people think of.
Yeah. I don't know if Jesse, but what was he, if Sinclair had stayed the commander of Babylon 5, what was his plan for Babylon 4? Who was going to lead it?
I do not know that right offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to try to remember that.
And
I
the other,
know, yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say some of the things that happened to Sheridan would have happened to Sinclair,
Mm-hmm.
and that we will discuss after it happens to Sinclair. I'll share what it would have happened if they
Okay.
had kept. Like after Sheridan happens, I'll go back and say this is how Sinclair originally they thought. I think this is a better story.
Yeah.
You know how often where it goes, oh wow, I wish I could have seen that original story. In this case, I think it actually worked better.
Yeah. My
Yeah, I
other
think so too.
question or
Sure.
interest would be is what happened to Babylon 5 after the war? Did it survive the war? And is it in some kind of museum or something like that? Like, where is it? Is it?
Oh, Babylon 4, you mean?
Yeah, Babylon 4. Yeah, well, like, where is it?
According
Did
to
it get blown up?
Lurker's Guide, it finally just died. It went through the war, it survived,
Mm-hmm.
and then they ended up having to get rid of it. just because of age. And
No, I think they would have kept it like a museum piece or something,
right?
or a
Pieces
memorial
of it,
or something. Yeah.
I guess they don't
good
have
question.
an Air and Space Museum on Minbar.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm thinking like in Picard season 3, they had all those old starships at the museum there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
Why did they make such a big deal about the Minbar having to have everything translated on the White Star and then it not really happening again? Why did they do that?
I don't know. My question,
not that it
yeah,
bothers me, but I'm like, why did they?
They still
make
might
such
be
a
doing
big
it. They're
deal?
just not showing it to us
Showing
for,
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but why?
for speed's sake.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
Why
because
is that
it
such a
might
big
come up
deal?
later in another episode where the translation
Maybe,
is
yeah.
important.
Was that some kind of plot point or something?
Yeah, I don't remember. According to B4, survived the prior Shadow War, but in very bad shape, didn't last much longer after that. That is his answer to that.
Okay.
Okay, good.
And mine
Too bad.
is just
Yeah, I'm not sure. I
So
do
it's not
wonder,
important.
which someone brought up another point, and this may be in our feedback. All right, Babylon 4, everything's in English. Is that one of the things Zathras did, is go around putting in Minbari directions on everything? So yeah, that's a good thing.
What's with all that?
Yeah. All right, anything else we need to talk about?
Although I do have to mention, one of the things that sticks in my head when I think about it is, how do they all understand each other? Do they have a Babel fish or a translator or something? And again, it's just a hand wave type of thing. I shouldn't really worry about it. It's for story's sake, but you know.
Yeah, and you wonder too, was Delenn, like, I assume when Delenn and I assume like at Minbari, were they talking the Minbari or were they talking English because they were practicing? When Delenn talks to her aide, Lanier, are they talking in Minbari and we're just translating it for us?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, there was actually a line on The Good Place, which we mention every once in a while on here, where Eleanor says to Chidi, "How do you speak such good English?" "Oh, I'm actually speaking French." But his mouth is making the words. It doesn't look like it's being translated from. It doesn't look like he's speaking French. So that bothers me. That's just a me thing.
Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of feedback that they thought Susan was a little too out of control on her scene. I give Susan the benefit of the doubt. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket.
Oh, the scene where Babylon 5 is under attack. Oh,
yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to talk about?
The fact that Sheridan or Sinclair used the Castle of Dunmore to transform himself into
the Cones of Dunshire.
Cones of Dunshire. I don't understand why that would cause the souls of the two races to commingle.
I don't think they do. I think what he was saying is that when he procreates on Minbar, that is what starts that whole human soul inside Minbar.
But it seemed like to be on a larger scale than just for one family. Right. Like I don't really get and I don't like, it's a genetic transformation. There's not I don't know. I just don't know. Obviously, I don't know how the machine works either. So I just didn't really get the connection between why changing one's DNA would cause this commingling of souls. So that was not clear. It's not clear to me still.
So I would think, and I'm trying to look and see if there is someone answering. Here's what I think, that the machine, the device changed him to the DNA, but his soul remained human. So therefore, when he had children, the children had half Minbari soul, half human soul, and then their children had their children. So remember, this is 1,000 years ago, so that's a lot of generations. So that's
it may not be every Minbari, but it's a good portion of them.
Yeah, okay. I guess I'm just operating from the perspective that a soul is a soul. The race is unimportant. So I'm just,
No, I think that's a fair discussion.
Yeah.
I think that's
a
definitely an
theological.
icebox moment where you
Yeah.
go, wait a minute. But when you think of it, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He became, yeah. And yeah. And by the way, Sheridan's father is David, so that's probably where
Okay,
that came from. Yeah.
that's
All right.
cool.
Anything else?
David Ritchie Cunningham.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Richie Cunningham
Um,
point 1.0.
nope. But I'm really
Okay.
curious to see how Garibaldi's going to act in the next episode.
Yes.
Right?
We did get that great scene where he's trying to figure out the password, peekaboo.
Yeah.
And he does get the video of I knew you would want to go with me and you wouldn't. I think they at least address that. So I agree with you that in a lot of ways that seems unrealistic, but we'll wait and see right?
Because
Okay.
even if he got that, even when he got the message, what would stop him from just jumping on a fighter and jumping into the
Right.
time hole thing? But yeah,
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I agree.
But
Yeah, I think
it
that's
is
all
it is what it is.
contrivance for a real life event.
Oh,
in my
here's a
opinion.
point. According to JMS, he lived 100 years as Mbari, but he did not have any children.
All
Wow.
right.
So how is she a descendant of Valen? Okay. Add that to our questions when JMS joins us.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
All right.
First of all, I want Bruce Boxleitner to join us.
Yes,
first.
absolutely. Yes, I do. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
He's up here. JMS is here. The guy who
Yes.
played Marcus.
So you're
Yes,
gonna have to do a video
absolutely.
podcast to make that point, Karen.
Oh yeah, I did the hands up above each other.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. All right, I'm going to ask one more time. Any final thoughts before we go to ratings?
It was a surprise to me that these episodes occurred where they did within the season. And I'm surprised at the amount of questions that they answered. I'm a little unfloored right now. I don't really know where the series is going from here.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting because we have 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm untethered.
Yes, we have 5 episodes left of this season.
Yeah.
Like it would have been a good season ender.
Yeah, one of them I do not care for, but the rest are all great. And JMS has said that one of these he wasn't happy with either. We'll keep that going where. All right, I'll go first. I think this is it gave us so many answers, so much fun. My issue is I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 Zathras tools working on the time stabilizer. You,
Okay.
Karen?
I think they're Leatherman.
Okay.
You know, the
Yes, there we
Leatherman
are.
tool.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I'll give it like a 9.75 bow staffs crashing into the wall.
Nice.
I'll give both episodes combined a 9.5. Not really jumping out anything or surprising endings.
I had a little bit of that same problem. There wasn't anything specific that said, "Oh, yeah, I should do this."
Clones of Dunshire.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unexpected Valen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a lot of feedback. So
We
I
did.
don't know if we're going to be able to read them all.
Yeah,
But,
I'm sorry. I was going to go through and copy and paste, but I'll just vamp it. Okay, I will first read the 2 feedback we got about the first part.
Okay.
Then we do have one that combines both, and then we have 2 that are just part 2.
Okay.
So I'll read the part 1 emails first. This is from Nathan. What a great episode, and what a whiplash after the death of one of the main characters in the show to have a triumphant return of a former regular. This episode made me realize how much I liked Sinclair. He was hard to warm up to. He was in the main cast, but for at least half of season 1, he was mostly just there for me. So when Sheridan appeared, it was sad that the commander had changed, but Bruce's much less reserved and more optimistic persona won me over pretty quickly, which made the explosion of warm feelings and giddiness when I saw Michael O'Hare return very surprising. What I would have liked to see is a more casual approach. Neither Sinclair nor Delenn need Sheridan. White Star belongs to Minbari, and either of them are actual commanders of it. Delenn as a representative of the owners, Sinclair as the head of the Rangers organization for which White Star was created for in the first place. It's never discussed in the show, but Rangers were the ones who tested smaller fighter prototypes of that new line based on Vorlon tech, along with White Star. So them taking it, regardless of Sheridan's objections, would be a great source of a momentary conflict and a reminder of the fuzzy chain of command, an alliance of necessity due to war, which works well because the head of part of Minbari, Ranger 1, and Babylon 5 Governor are good people who get along. It would be very logical for Sheridan to go because he likes mysteries, because he wouldn't miss something like that in a million years, and because he cares for Delenn as it would lead her. So thanks, Nathan. That's fantastic, that first email. Sorry I snipped all these in advance, by the way. The second one is from Texas on the Shock, and for once I can read his whole email about part 1. Not much to say about this. It's a setup for the next part, but a few things. Once again, JMS sneaks his original plan into the story in the Minbari record. The series was going to end with the destruction of Babylon 5 in a massive attack. This would then lead into a new series that begins with Sinclair and company going back in time to secure Babylon 4 as their new base of operations. Okay, that's cool. There's a practical reason Sinclair and Garibaldi do not share any scenes together. In real life, Michael O'Hare and Jerry Doyle did not get along, so JMS decided there was no reason to put them on set together. The transmission has never sat well with me, but I think I know what they were going for. We've seen Ivanova face combat and dangerous situations without batting an eye before, so when we hear her in an absolute panic, it's meant to show that things are really bad in this future. I just don't think it was executed as well as it could have been. And Zathras is back. Anyway, as I said, it's set up for the next part, which sets up the next great story. This is the Texas on the Shock signing off. Until Zaveni in Valen.
By the way, we talk about their kind of hints about episodes. The next great story was the little hint there, in case you missed it. Because in part 2, they do say the start of the next great story.
Oh, the start of the next great story. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't catch that at all. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, so David sent us an email about both parts. I'm just going to snip pieces here and there because it's a lot. Part 1, this is the second go at trying to do these episodes. Realized I'd written a truly massive letter and covered the first 10 minutes. So you get the Reader's Digest version. And it's still long, David. Another entry in JMS's Wham episodes. This was another 2 of the B5 episodes nominated for the 97 Hugos. So far, you've seen 3 of the 7. So they go back 6 years and immediately find the Shadow Fighters bomb is close to the station and close to them. They get the lucky shot, and while escaping the blast, a beam of energy hits Sheridan, overloading his time stabilizer, blah, blah, blah. Sheridan awakens in the Centauri royal court. He gets roughed up by the guards. Before being presented to the old Emperor Molari, he makes several dark comments to Sheridan about paying him back for the war and shows him a shattered city with fires all around. Before dismissing us, he does tell Sheridan that 17 years have passed. Question: did Sheridan jump into his future self? What was he doing on Centauri Prime in the future? Oh, good point. And I think he did jump into his future self, or else there would be 2 Sheridans, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, are we going to find out why he was on Centauri Prime? So who knows? And then he moves on to part 2. I'm going to try and find his. Zathras explains the nature of the one. Sinclair is the one of the past. Delenn is the one of the present. Sheridan is the one of the future. Sinclair makes sense. He's going into the past. Delenn, too. She's in the present. Does this imply Sheridan will be going into the future? Question. The B5 crew are headed home. Interesting. They have all removed the time stabilizers. And after they pass through the rift, Delenn tells the other part of the story, once again, holding back information. The Minbari of 1,000 years ago wouldn't take B4 if it was defiled by humans. We see Sinclair finishing the chrysalis device, and Marcus realizes who the Minbari not born of Minbari was. After a couple of season 1 clips, we see B4 flanked by 2 Vorlon ships. It's now 1,000 years ago. Two Minbari warriors enter. Zathras welcomes them and takes them to a changed Sinclair flanked by two angelic Vorlons, who tells them to use the station. He is called Valen, and there is lots of work. Questions. How are they going to operate the station? Do any of them read English, or had Zathras spent the time Sinclair was changing to make Minbari Daimo labels?
Yes, and by the way, that was where I got that note from. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It is.
Since Sinclair / Valen is in the past, does that end the religious caste's habit of it was prophesied by Valen, etc.? How will the knowledge that Valen was a transformed human affect the religious caste and Minbari society in general? What other impacts will Sinclair Valen have 1,000 years ago? Personally, I don't think they know that he's human at all.
Yeah,
I think they just accept him as being full Centauri, and he never tells them otherwise.
Yeah, thankfully, I think that's too. I feel that same way.
Yeah. Thankfully, next couple of weeks won't be so long. I am going to steal Texas's tagline till next week in Sinclair's name.
Nice.
So thank you, David. And now on to the part 2. I'll go with Nathan first. He says, what a great episode. So what the hell is going on in the future? A parasite? Shadow allies? Londo died? Jakar 2? Centauri Prime burning still for a long time or recently? What? Yeah, it's all confusing. I doubt you will come to a satisfying conclusion regarding that part. And it was a source of great unproductive speculation among the fans too. Also, such a wonderful twist on Londo being a complete and great villain at the end of the last episode. Let me ask you a question. This is Karen.
Yes.
Talking for Karen. How did they kill each other? Because you would think that one of them would die and would release their hold on the other one, right? Did they die at exactly the same moment?
I think that is the implication. I think that's certainly, as we talk about a icebox moment,
right?
That is a fair one, right? Wait a minute.
How would they do that? Yeah. I could see shooting each other, but actually using your hands to kill someone, one of them would die first, most likely.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. This carefully crafted and brilliantly executed payoff is actually one of the parts of B5 that set me up for decades of disappointment in serialized TV, because writers are rarely careful about consistency, remembering what they wrote seasons ago or delivering on their own narrative promises, even more so in sci-fi fantasy TV shows, because they think that if it's fantasy, gaps of explanation can be everywhere. Some trivia. JMS decided on becoming Valen storyline from being inspired by Naroon's words Sinclair has a flashback to from Legacy, an episode written by DC Fontana, which adds to the point of collaboration being great and against JMS's stubbornness about working alone. With regards, Nathan.
Yeah.
So that's
and by the way, he sent me a separate email. You act like I don't like the show. And I'm like, no, you're tougher on it than I am. But no, I know. Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Everyone has their own opinions. And I think that's a great comment about serialized TV being disappointing after things like this. But I do have to say there are shows out there, and I'll just mention 2. Number 1, we're talking about 12 Monkeys right now, and it is really good about continuity and keeping things fresh. And also Farscape, for me, was really good about continuity, even when losing characters and introducing new characters. Yep. So there are examples of that out there. And the newer Star Treks are bad about it. There's lots of continuity issues with those.
They're very bad about it.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A lot of people would let it go and hand wave and stuff, but I think we learn how to watch speculative fiction through the better shows. Mm-hmm. And that's why it stands out as irritating.
But they are unfortunately rare. Like you mentioned, Farscape. I agree. The other one would be
Fringe. Yes, definitely. That's one.
But beyond that, it's
right.
There's not a lot.
Exactly. And a glaring issue of not having good continuity would be Lost.
Yeah.
It's
one
very
of the things. One of the things that frustrates me is I've seen people say that they don't like writers' rooms because they feel like it 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 is the reason why we have bloated storylines and that there's not a tightness. And I disagree with that. No,
Yeah.
I think a showrunner can have that. I think a good example of that is Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And gosh, I can't remember the showrunner, but he is very good at having a pure story and he knows what to tell. So I think you can do that well. I think that so it just depends on the writers and what they're doing, because there is a beauty to having collaboration of people giving different stories, which is a good example, right? Of he did not plan on him being Valen, and now then he did that. Wow, that's a great idea and gives me some new different things. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with things like in real life, any kind of business, you need good management.
Yes.
And I think that is part of how a writer's room works well.
And sometimes the bloat is because the studio says we want 23 episodes and the writers say, but we've only got 10. Right. And then you're going to have to write some more stories. And that's where that that's when you get into those kind of scenarios.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the downsides of, and I get it, there is a lot to be said that is really well done with network TV, right? I'm not going to ever say I don't like network TV, but the beauty of a streaming service is you go, how many episodes do you need to tell the story? Well, I need 8. Okay, good. I need 15. Okay, great. Versus network, it's 22. That is the way this works, right?
Because of sweeps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a definite, I was going to make that exact point that streaming now, at least we have these people that can say, look, I got a tight story in 10. And the Netflix or whoever, Hulu says, great, here's 10 episodes.
Yeah, so, even Ted Lasso ran into that in the second season. The Apple said, we want an extra episode. They said, we don't have an extra episode. You're going to have to write one up. And then they did one and it was terrible.
They had to add 2.
Oh, was it 2? I thought it was just the one.
No, the Christmas one was one of the extras they did, which is amazing. Yeah. And then the other one was Beard's Night, which was horrible.
Yeah. It was terrible.
I
like Coach Beard. Don't get me
I did too. And that episode is just one that was
fit
odd.
The tone of the show.
Yeah.
It was
versus
terrible.
The Christmas one, I didn't feel like it was the one off till afterwards. I went, oh, okay, that was fun. So,
exactly.
All right.
So our last email comes from Texas, and it's about part 2. I'm reminded from a podcast a few years back that would do episodes in 2 parts. The first part would discuss everything up to the current episode, and then they jump to spoiler space. One of them would always start the spoiler section by blurting out, Sinclair's Valen, which we talked about.
Yes, thank you, Texas. I did give you credit. I did say I thought that was from you. Yes.
Yeah, you did. You gave credit. I love the circle here, and not just Sinclair's. When we first meet Londo, he's a drunken gambler, and here he's drunk himself nearly into a stupor, so his keeper won't be watching as he makes the biggest gamble of his life with his homeworld's future at stake. And then we finally see the dream Londo's had of his death come to pass. This is a feature of JMS's writing. He quite often tells us what's going to happen, but doesn't tell us how it will happen. Same with the fate of Centauri Prime here. We see it as a burning ruin, but how will we get here? We'll have to wait. Oh, and Sheridan and Delenn are going to have a son. I love that it's just a side note. They're going to have a son.
Yeah.
So we see Babylon Squared from the other side this time, with the crew trying to steal the station as Sinclair and Garibaldi arrive to investigate. And in another twist, it turns out it was not Sinclair we see in the blue suit. It wasn't even Sheridan. It was Delenn. We then get Zathras' explanation of the one. And it turns out the thing Sinclair was trying to tell them was for Garibaldi to watch his back. That might seem a strange and trite thing, but as someone pointed out, if Garibaldi had not been shot in the back, how different things would have turned out. He may have been able to warn the president, and possibly Santiago would still be alive. And that would be a very different world. Anyway, the circle is closed. This now gives new meaning to when Kosh said he knew what was coming. He didn't just predict what would happen. He quite literally knew because Valen told him. Now, however, we are in uncharted waters. How will our heroes weather them? Just have to watch our gaze like lasers shining in the night. Okay, so I'm assuming it's lasers shining in the light. It's its little
I would think that may be
red
there.
crumb.
Yes.
Okay, this is the Texas on the Shock signing off.
Good. As always, we appreciate that. If someone wants to reach you, Karen, how can they?
I am at Oliveria on the various social medias. I just got an invite to Blue Sky. Is that what it is?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Blue Sky. So if you're on Blue Sky, I'm Oliveria there too. So feel free to hit me up.
Okay.
And there's a link in my Twitter bio to my blog, at which there's a lot of them.
Very nice. Lou, I thought since we did not do a new episode, there was no feedback on YouTube, but I may have been wrong.
The last episode we have up is interludes and examinations, and there's just most of the discussion is around Londo's actions, whether we bought them or not. And
okay,
that's artist subjective. Some people bought it and some of us didn't, like namely me.
Absolutely. Good.
So that's all we got there. And if you want to see where that discussion is, just go to YouTube and look for Lou's Reviews, where you'll find the Babylon 5 podcast, along with our JKL Media podcast, where we're currently working our way through 12 Monkeys. We're on the last season. That's going to be exciting to get that one under our belts. Also have some interviews with writers that I do, as well as Stephen King podcast. And I'll probably have to do one soon because I just finished his latest book this week, which was Holly. And that's one of the reasons I didn't get the 12 Monkey episodes I'll watch, because I read that book for a day and a half and it took me out.
Dumb question. Good.
Sure. Yes, I quite enjoyed it.
Okay, great.
It's on my Kindle.
Yeah, I have not purchased it yet, but I'm going to.
You have to read the other trilogy, Mr. Mercedes trilogy. And
I have read all three of those.
Oh, and Let It Bleed.
Not recently.
Let It Bleed, and is there something else? I think and Let It Bleed is in that short story collection. And so that one you could get by, but yeah, you definitely have to read the Mr. Mercedes trilogy to know who Holly is. And I just thought that he really did a great job with her in this book.
Awesome.
Okay, good. And you can send us your email if you want to be like Texas on the Shock and
the Ranger.
Yes, and Daryl and David, jklb5podcast@gmail.com. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. Today, as we're recording this, is September 10th. If you will go to Set Lusting Bruce, you will find a brand new episode featuring Lou talking Rush.
Woo.
That episode is out today. This won't be out for a couple of days, but so go back, look at it. I am in the middle of 30 episodes in 30 days.
Wow.
Because I am insane.
Jeez. This is your NaNoWriMo podcast?
Yeah. This is
NaNoWriMo. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. I always try to do something special in September because it's the September 8th was the first Set Listing Bruce episode, and September 23rd is Bruce's birthday. So I always try to do something special in September, and I'm working on getting Karen back. So we just got to figure out a time.
We're talking about my rabbit hole.
Yes.
Of watching stupid videos.
Yeah, so this will be fun. All right, next week we do Walkabout, and we get back to Franklin's story, and Kosh's replacement shows up.
Interesting.
Yeah, come back next week as we continue down our discussion of Babylon 5. Lou, thank you.
Very welcome.
Karen, thank you.
You're welcome.
And listeners, thank you. We appreciate you so much hanging with us as we go through this journey. Please keep feedback coming. And for now, ask everyone to be careful, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yay. Great.
And see.